Hello, everyone. Our topic today of dynamic pricing and the key takeaway of how to get the most revenue for your rentals. My name is Keegan Cotton. I'm the customer success director for Guesty here for our Americas and APAC region. So I work closely with a number of our customers to be sure that they're utilizing the Guesty platform as effectively as possible, helping them face any challenges that may arise in the particular geo or inventory subset that they're working within, and overall just provide kind of like a strategic consultant, since I work with so many different customers and my team works with so many different customers. With us today, we have three great panelists joining us. I'm really excited to have Dana Hoffman, one of our senior product managers here at Guesty, who's been working with our dynamic pricing tool, Guesty PriceOptimizer, on the technical end. Jeff Nicias, who's been our PriceOptimizer program manager. Jeff is a property manager himself. So it's been really awesome to have him jump in to run this program and give us a true understanding of what is going to make the difference for property managers with this functionality, rather than, guessing our best or talking to customers ourselves. It really helps having someone in the decision room when we are making these functionalities. And then lastly, so that it's not just Guesty tooting our own horn of how great Guesty is, we have a customer with us today, Michael Panisi, who's a business owner of a number of brands across, one of them being the Melrose building. And he's here to talk to us about his experience with the Guesty Price Optimizer, as he's been using it for quite some time now, and kind of what that decision-making process was for him, what he's excited for moving forward, and how it's really made a difference at the end of the day. All right, so in terms of our agenda for today's presentation, we'll start with a little bit of brief data for me to kind of set the tone of where we're at for spring bookings. Then we'll go through some presentations with Dana and Jeff, going through the Price Optimizer tool, our latest features, what we've been seeing in the market. Then Michael will give us his view on revenue management strategies to help you unlock new revenue potential. And lastly, we'll have some free time for panel discussion from questions that were submitted ahead of time by viewers, ones that we thought up of ourselves, just to get some good conversation going, and any questions that might be lingering from the Q&A that we think would be good to discuss in a panel format. All right. Before we dive into today's topic, I want to just take a minute to introduce Guesty to those of you who are not yet familiar with what we do. So at Guesty, we're providing short-term rental hosts and property management companies with the tools they need to operate more efficiently, bring in more bookings, and ultimately grow their business and grow their revenue at the end of the day. So now we recently relaunched our newest product. Previously was Guesty for Hosts. Now, as we've embedded it fully into the Guesty tech stack, it has become Guesty Lite. So no matter how many properties you manage, what your goals are, or whether you're just getting started or you're a full-time property manager with tons of listings, within Guesty, we have a solution that's perfectly suited for you and your needs. You're not having to try to claw your way through a super complex system just to manage a couple of listings. But if you have a lot of listings, you're not limited by the functionality presented in front of you. So into the data portion here. This is great. I'm used to having these data points come through and say like, hey, it's not as bad as it may seem right now in 2023, but it looks like 24 is on the brighter side of things. So things are looking positive for spring bookings this year. When looking at the spring period, which we're talking about March to April of 2024, and comparing it to previous years, we're seeing an upward trend in booking volume in the US and also in the around the world. So the global spring season booking volumes are predicted to be 6.7% higher than 2023. And then the US, we're seeing a 6.5% increase in booking volumes compared to last year. But as we all know, booking volumes is not the only metric here that really signals success in the space. We also wanted to take a look at the cost per reservation, right? Or the average nightly rate, average daily rate, whatever you want to call it. So globally, we're seeing a slight increase of 1.7% in average nightly rate compared to 23. In the US, we're seeing a more significant increase of 6.1%. It's not clear exactly yet what is the direct cause of this, if it's having to do with the amount of inventory in the market as of today, if that's shifting because of consolidating property management companies, regulation, what have you. But all in all, we are seeing this increase. So that's where our meetup comes in, right? That's why it's relevant. If we're seeing this uptick in bookings and we're seeing an uptick in ANR, then that means it's a perfect time to really dive into, okay, well, how do I make the most out of the opportunity that I have? How do I price so effectively that I'm able to both increase my bookings and my ANR and not kind of get swallowed up in the competition? So our speakers are going to unveil some innovative revenue management tactics, including Guesty's cutting-edge pricing tools, so that you can align your rates with market demand, price competitively, and of course, maximize your revenue. So we're looking to have you walk away today with actionable plans that will help your business prosper in the market and really come away with specific items. So enough from me. Let's go ahead and get it over to the real stars of today's presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Dana Hoffman, as I mentioned, our senior product manager, to tell you about our dynamic pricing tool, Guesty PriceOptimizer. So Dana, I will go ahead and let you share your screen and walk us through.
Thank you, Keegan. It's a pleasure to be here. Screen. Okay, so today's webinar is all about revenue management and dynamic pricing, and for a good reason. When it comes to revenue management, the impact of the bottom line of your business is huge. Our data shows that the property manager and host who do this right yield at least 25% higher revenue compared to those who do the bare minimum. They also enjoy higher occupancy, as you can see in the slide, 10% increase, improvement in their selling of last night and booking window, and save a lot of manual work. So before we talk about how to do revenue management right, let's discuss on what exactly revenue management is. So a capable revenue management system provides property managers with the tools to fine-tune the strategy, optimize pricing, and to outperform their business and homeowner goals. At Guesty, we like to think on revenue management as a pyramid. The pyramid consists different layers of granularity, allowing you to decide how deep you want to dive into each layer. On the screen, you can see a simplified blueprint of revenue management stack. This is a result of 100 hours of research and work with our partners and clients. We concluded that the best way to structure and think about revenue management is to break it down into 3 layers. So the base layer, as you can see, the bottom one, which probably the most important and where you will spend most of your time, is where you define your own pricing strategy to optimize calendar prices and maximize revenue and occupancy. And today's session will focus mainly on this layer. The next layer are the rate plan. This is where you increase conversion by offering multiple booking options, such as adjustable cancellation policy, for example. And the top layer is the promotion. This is where you can create an edge over your competition by targeting a specific audience and increase your visibility in the search results. Okay, so dynamic pricing tools are fully automated tools that utilize various metrics to determine the optimal price for you. It considers factors like market change, competitors' pricing, and your inventory, incorporating this information into an algorithm specially designed to attract more guests and increase your revenue. So I'm happy to introduce our latest innovation in the vacation rental industry, Guesty PriceOptimizer, a machine learning pricing optimization tool that will revolutionize the way that you manage pricing strategy for your properties. So Guesty PriceOptimizer helps you to optimize your revenue every single day across all channels from one centralized platform. Align your listing rates with market trends, events, and demand to win more business. In addition, to outperform your business goal by offering competitive pricing to maximize occupancy year-round. With Guesty PriceOptimizer, you get a fully embedded revenue management tool that pushes optimized pricing to all your channels automatically, helping you to save time, avoid manual errors, and ensure your pricing is always up to date. And finally, it is integrated in our revenue management stack, allowing you to add multiple cancellation policy, length of stay promotion, discounts, coupons, all within Guesty platform. Okay, so how it works? So PriceOptimizer connects to multiple data sources and deliver price impacting data to the pricing engine. We process millions of data points on a daily basis. From this data, we identify a specific property profile and understand the pricing patterns of these specific markets. This understanding leads to pricing suggestions that incorporate dynamic factors such as competition, demand, seasonality, and other market events. And in addition, PriceOptimizer take into account your interaction with the tool. So for example, if you're make an adjustment on your pricing strategy or prices, the algorithm takes them into consideration. And these optimized prices are automatically pushes to all your connected OTA channels and of course to your direct website. So Jeff, now it's time to demo, right? So I would like to invite Jeff, our Price Optimizer program manager, to show you Guesty Price Optimizer in an action.
Thanks, Dana. So today, what I'll be covering, we'll be demoing the tool itself. And what I'll do is I'll take you through some strategies here, showcasing the features and how you can use these to maximize your revenue and boost your occupancy. So just as a reference point, I'll be demoing in Guesty for Pro. PriceOptimizer is the exact same within Guesty for Host and also Guesty Lite. So it'll look the exact same. So if I open up a listing here from our main menu within PriceOptimizer, we come to the pricing forecast screen, and just a quick overview of what this looks like here. This listing is actually toggled on within PriceOptimizer. So if I view the trend lines at the bottom, blue is our actual pricing that PriceOptimizer is going to recommend. So if I hover over any of these nights, we'll get a tooltip here. And essentially the basic calculation here is we're going to take the base price, which is the starting point for your algorithm, and we're going to increase or decrease by season, day of the week, and holiday. So what can you do to kind of maximize some of these strategies and things that are a little bit different here within PriceOptimizer? Starting with the strategy section, we have the base price. So again, these will all be set to a recommendation here based on our algorithm, based on your listing's characteristics and the marketplace that you're within. So the base price, again, is the starting point. So, what we have that's allows you to kind of change your strategies here is the base price overall. This is your starting point. If we increase the base price 20%, you can see in purple is our adjustment line. We're essentially increasing our entire pricing strategy 20%. We're increasing all 365 nights equally. Same thing if we drop 20%, we're decreasing our strategy by 20%. So what we can do here is perhaps that your pricing forecast looks great, but 10 out of the 12 months look good. You want to adjust maybe the base price or tweak 2 out of those 12 months. So that's what we can do here within the pricing strategy, starting with the seasonality function. So again, the pricing forecast is based off of base price plus day of the week, season, and holiday. Here are those features, starting with seasonal. This is going to be a wireframe of your market based on your listing's characteristics. And essentially what this is showing you is the blue dotted line is your base price. And on average, for example, for July, the average of July is going to be a 48% increase above the base price. February is a 21% decrease below the base price. This is our recommendation. However, some of the tools here that you can now tweak this adjustment here is allowing the manual pricing impact. And now we can control these percentages for each of the 12 months. So perhaps if we wanted to adjust the base price specifically for March, the rest of the year looks great. For whatever reason, we want to tweak our pricing within March. I'll do a really extreme example here. We'll increase March up to 80%. If I view the pricing forecast from within this feature, you can see we're keeping the same trend line. So blue is our current pricing. The purple would be our adjustment. We're keeping the same trend line. Essentially what we're doing is we're increasing the base price for the average of March. So now we can kind of drill down and adjust individual months, whereas the base price strategy here adjusts all 12. So that's the seasonal functionality. We can also then focus on the day of the week strategy. So what this is going to show is on the pricing forecast, we have the peaks and we have the valleys here for all 52 weeks. Peaks are going to be your weekends and holidays where we're trying to maximize your revenue. The valleys are your Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays. We're trying to boost your occupancy by decreasing the pricing. So day of the week, you can actually control the amplitude between these values. Again, here's our recommendation within your market. Manual pricing impact, you can control these values. So for example, perhaps on Monday, you'd prefer your pricing to closer align to Tuesday and Wednesday because you'd like to attract business travelers. So we could essentially drop the base price specifically for all 52 Mondays, or we could increase the price for our weekends here up 15% or 17%. We could increase those values. We're essentially adjusting the base price for those individual days of the week. And then lastly, we have the holiday settings. So if we click manual pricing impact here, we'll have the country that your listing is within. This is a US demo account. So we are showing all the US preset holidays, the date ranges those cover, and our pricing impact, the markup or markdown. So for example, if we needed to increase or decrease the price of, let's say, Independence Day, we could easily come in here. We could adjust those prices very quickly without having to scroll through our pricing forecast or select specific dates. It's already preset for you. Now, you cannot add additional seasons here, but we do have a feature, the local event function. So now what we can do here is we can actually set specific time periods that we want to mark up for example, a festival, or perhaps it's a local holiday that's not covered. We can add a rule here. And for, what I always, bring up to people is, Taylor Swift concerts. So how the algorithm works is we're going to look for increases or decreases in demand in your marketplace. So for concerts, for example, we're going to pick up on the occupancy within the market is increasing. So if you're waiting for an event to announce their dates, what you could do here is once they're announced, you could easily import those dates. We could say, maybe it's March 8th through the 10th. There's a specific event that's going on. It was just announced. We could set that date range to a specific dollar amount, or we could increase or decrease by a percentage. So, for the Taylor Swift concerts as a huge example here, you might not have time. The algorithm might not have time to catch up to those increases in the marketplace. We can set this ahead of time to make sure our pricing is accurate before, someone were to book our property for a value that we, would not want them to book at, essentially. So we can add the local events here. And again, like I mentioned, you could add a specific holiday as well if you prefer. So those are two features that you can use to kind of tweak your pricing strategy. Another really great one here is the demand pacing. So the automatic demand pacing is just what I mentioned previously. We're going to look for increases of occupancy within your marketplace. And if that happens, we'll increase the pricing of your property. So this is the automatic version. We're going to automatically look for those increases in demand. The manual version here, and I have this preset up already, but this is saying, forget the market. Let's focus on my individual listings occupancy. And I want to control the algorithm. So essentially what I have here, I have set up already, when the occupancy is equal to or less than these tiers, across these time periods, we can choose to mark up or mark down our rates via this matrix. So if we're at or below 30% occupancy over the next week, we want to add in a 25% discount. If it's 31 to 50%, maybe that gets smaller. Obviously, the further out we go from today, the discounts get smaller as well. Let's say that our goal is 70% occupancy. Once we're at or above 70% occupancy, we actually now want to start marking up our rates 15 to 30 days in advance by 10%. 31 to 365, we can mark them up 15%. So what you're getting here is some additional control over the algorithm and how it operates, and less more about the market and more focus on your individual listing, what your listing's occupancy percentage is. And so what will happen is we do have our last minute strategy as well. These two will combine together. And the last minute strategy is essentially the closer we get to today, we could start discounting the price of our listing, no matter what our occupancy is. We have some automation within here. The recommended version here, basically saying 21 days in advance. We have 21 different rule sets. We're going to drop the rate a percentage every night. If we're vacant today, it'll be the maximum of a 15% discount. Aggressive is just saying at the 10-day marker instead of 21, we're going to be a sharper decline to 15%. Conservative starts even further back. And then we also have our manual impact here. So where we could set specific rules, which I have preset already. So you can see a 10% discount 10 days before check-in, etc. So what will happen is this is based on days from today. the manual pricing impact for demand is based on your listing's occupancy. Now, if we go to the pricing forecast, we can actually see here, for example, March 8th. Remember, we started with base price plus or minus season, day of the week, and holiday. Well, now we've added in our last minute discount. We've also added in our demand pacing discount. So this can be a really valuable tool, the demand pacing, especially when your occupancy is low. That's usually going to be the case in the off season, where we can try to then maximize our revenue. We can be really aggressive with our pricing, or you can set specific parameters that you'd prefer for the algorithm to adjust your pricing. So those are some main features here that you can really fine tune your strategy on how you want to operate, especially with that demand pacing feature. Now, we do have another feature that I'd like to preview that we are going to be rolling out here probably by the end of March, and it's our competitor benchmarking. Within this feature, which would be really valuable for everyone to use, is what you can do is you can create a comp set. And I can start tracking specific listings that are my competition. And I can see what their average occupancy percentage would be, what their average price would be over these specific time periods versus my own. So now I can see, okay, if there's 6 or 7 listings I track within my market that are, they're doing really well. We're very similar. We have the same amenities. We have the same kind of location. I can keep an eye on them and see how they're performing. And now I can come back in here and start adjusting my demand pacing. I can start adjusting my last minute strategy. Even more importantly, I can start adjusting my minimum night rules to kind of increase your occupancy. And so, what we can do here is, for example, I'll show you how we can create a comp set. So if I were to create a new comp set, what we have here, here's a market that we're in. I could zoom in and I could start selecting specific listings. And what you can do is you can see, bedroom size, how many it sleeps. It'll have a link specifically to their Airbnb listing. So you could preview, their photos, what their description looks like, how their listing's set up, not just their pricing. So I could start adding these to my specific comp set to start tracking these listings here. So this is a really good feature that'll make sure that you're kind of aligned, especially if you have some, really great performing listings that you want to keep an eye on. This is an easy way to do so without having to do that manual research there. And then lastly, I did want to mention, so within our revenue management strategies, we do have promotions as well. And so while we can do our last minute strategies here within PriceOptimizer, we can also set up specific promotions from within Guesty. So for example, we could add a new promotion, and I could, we have a direct API connection with these specific channels. So for example, on Airbnb, we can pull in these specific promotions from Airbnb. I could set these up, apply it to a certain subset of listings, and for example, send out a length of stay promotion. So just wanted to highlight that as well. It's a really great feature that we have within Guesty that everyone should take advantage of.
Before we continue, coming soon are the data-driven promotions. We are adding the data-driven aspect to another layer of revenue management, the promotions. So PriceOptimizer will suggest length of stay promotion that fit each listing and take into account the performance and the behavior of your listing, including the average length of stay of your listing and the length of stay of your competition, high season, which means that you're not selling your most profitable night at a discount and other factors. And this promotion will be automatically created and sent to your channels, where you can benefit from the strike-through effect and a better search ranking results. So this one is really exciting and it's coming really soon. So just to share with the audience here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff and Dana. Jeff, on your journey with GPO thus far, what's been your favorite functionality that's come through on GPO specifically?
Yeah, the kind of what that matrix that I mentioned, that's been really valuable, especially here in the off season when the occupancy rates are kind of slowing down. And I know they're really picking up for spring, but when things slow down, we can choose to be really aggressive. And so aligning that along with like our minimum night restrictions, maybe dropping your minimum night restrictions the closer we get to today, has really helped kind of fill in those gaps when the occupancy might not be as high as you'd expect. And so what we can then do is we can focus on our occupancy driving our revenue. in the off season. We're just trying to get it filled in, and we know if we get it filled in, Price Optimizer is going to have it, above our floor. We're never going to go below a dollar amount that we're willing to rent below, but we
Yeah.
can drive occupancy is going to drive our revenue there.
It's so great to see how quickly these new functionalities have come on Guesty Price Optimizer, and really kind of we've been prioritizing them by impact on our customer base, which has been really great to see. Okie dokie. All right, without further ado, we're on to our last speaker here. So, Michael, if you want to go ahead and share your screen, we can kick things off from the property management perspective.
All right, so thanks for having me, first of all, and thank you guys for all that you do to make this platform what it is. I appreciate you having me on. So I am the managing partner, one of the managing partners, and owner of Inspired Accommodations. We own 50 plus short-term rental units, and we've been using Guesty for some time. I'm going to run you through a little bit about our background, and then I'm going to run you through kind of, our evolution in terms of what we've done with systems and specifically Price Optimizer. Bear with me one second here. So the first building we bought, we were very, new, didn't know anything about short-term rental business, but we went out and bought a bed and breakfast down in Ocean Grove, New Jersey. It's a block from the shore, from the beach. And, it was really basically an experience just trying to renovate a building and obviously put some systems in place to understand what we were doing. Since that point, we've bought some others. We bought the Allenhurst in Ocean Grove, which is, a 17 bedroom apartment building, again, a block from the shore. We've bought the Central Ave house, which we're about to launch in the next couple of weeks. And that's another bed and breakfast, about a block from the beach. And we also have ski rentals and a number of other, different opportunities for our guests to stay in, various different conditions. So whether it's beach or whether it's ski or mountains and whatnot. What we realized when we first started to launch our business is that the initial problem we had was really with a calendar. Is just understanding, all right, we're on Airbnb, we're on Vrbo, like what do we do to make sure that our calendars are syncing? And we were kind of losing our minds, not knowing, what that looked like at first. So we immediately realized that we needed to have a platform to take care of that. And lo and behold, we stumbled upon Guesty. Guesty really checked a lot of boxes, but it was even early on for Guesty in terms of what they were offering and the different programs. They did have, a lot of different partnerships that, we started to leverage and, looked into more and more over time. That helped us with the calendar portion, like no question about it. I don't know how you scale a business with short-term rentals without, understanding how to actually work with, with the different calendars on the different booking channels. So that was the first checkbox that we used this for. Then we moved on to advanced analytics. And then it was like really just understanding the business of short-term rentals and how to, better manage what we were doing from a revenue perspective and understand, what we had coming in, when we had it coming in and all of that. So that was, another feature of Guesty that we started to use heavily, and it helped us, grow our business. From there, we actually moved away from Guesty. We stayed on the platform for calendars and for advanced analytics, but we used a lot of the partner programs that are out there, third-party vendors. The first thing we did, actually, I should say, is we tried to do our own messaging. And we had, people that we hired local that were doing messaging for us and, back and forth with guests. We were trying to take it on, which really was a disaster, to be honest, in retrospect. But it was something that we felt like, okay, we could handle this, and we'll set up the right tools and automations to handle, all of our guest inquiries. It really wasn't the best fit, and I'll get to that in a second. The next thing we did is we set up smart locks, which, was pretty basic for us, especially, during COVID. We wanted to have, we didn't want to have anybody welcoming. We wanted to have, no interaction, just, have a smart lock, send them a code. And it worked for us. We still stuck with that. That's definitely our mode moving forward. We're never going to go back and have any live interaction between our guests and potential staff. The last thing was dynamic pricing. So we had three different, between staff locally, a different third-party vendor that we were working with for both smart locks and for dynamic pricing. And we kind of moved along with that for some time, and it was going well for us. But what happened was Guesty launched a product called Guesty Communication Services, which really took over the messaging for us, and it was cost effective, and it also just made a lot of sense to kind of integrate it all into one platform. And when they did that, we realized like maybe we should explore some of the other things that they have. And we did, and we chose not to make a switch at that time. But then what Guesty did is actually launched the bundle package that they have called Guesty Ultimate. And we realized that it was actually more expensive and it was more difficult for us to remain with the partners that we were working with. Because one, when we bundled all of what we were using in terms of Guesty platform, in terms of, going back for a second, in terms of GCS, and obviously the Guesty locks and dynamic pricing, Guesty PriceOptimizer, we realized that the money we were spending on Guesty locks and the money we were spending on the PriceOptimizer for these other programs, we actually were going to be able to save that money and bring it all into Guesty. So it really was a no-brainer for us to switch over. And that's really how we got to where we are in terms of using the platform for all of these different services. What I wanted to get into a little bit about is price, the price dynamics and dynamic pricing rather, and then specifically to PriceOptimizer within Guesty, because there were some learnings we had that are worth sharing. For starters, it really makes sense to use a dynamic pricing tool. If you're not using it, it's just a no-brainer, because the reality is like you're going to get a better return in terms of the revenue, in terms of occupancy. Having multiple pricing strategies versus just one pricing strategy is definitely the right way to go. And I'm going to speak to some of the rules that we put in place to make that happen. The number one thing for us is about increasing profits. I think that speaks, to everybody. Ultimately, that's, this is a business. We were trying to grow profits. And so the overarching theme was that. But what we realized is there were certain ways that we were going to develop and build, our profits. We initially went into this thinking events were a place that we were losing money. Not losing money, but not necessarily getting the best return that we could get. There are a lot of events down the shore, the Jersey Shore, and it was something that we felt like, okay, like if we understood the pricing dynamics for those events, we could probably better increase our pricing, and ultimately we're going to get the occupancy, but it's a matter of like how much we're getting paid for that occupancy. So that was our initial, thought, that coupled with seasonal pricing. And both of those things were accurate. We definitely got wins on both fronts. And, that was something that Jeff went through on how to, actually best optimize that. But what we realized is those were not the only wins that we got. The light bulb went off for us as it pertains to price sensitivity, because price sensitivity, what we realized in our marketplace is, there was a difference of like $5, like if $5 a night, and all of a sudden, like it was the difference of getting a ton of bookings or not getting bookings. And when we realized how sensitive the pricing was, we started to make some changes and really be more strategic about how we approach pricing in our marketplace, because you may think that there's nobody booking, but the reality is you're $5 off. And so, it depends on the marketplace, obviously, but for our marketplace, that was a big learning for us. Another learning is related to cleaning staff. I think that anybody who does short-term rentals realizes that like the boots on the ground, the people that are actually turning the rooms over, in many cases are the rate limiting factor. That's the one thing that can make or break your business. And what we were finding is we had great staff, but we also had a lot of units concentrated in one area. So when you look at, the 40 plus units that we had in one area, we realized that we needed to do a much better job with the pricing strategy in order to accommodate our cleaning staff and make sure that we could actually do the turnovers that needed to be. So we came up with this strategy that we wanted to do more occupancy, but less check-ins, pretty basic concepts. And the way that we went about that is really layering pricing rules. So the pricing rules that we looked at was, first is price reductions for longer stays. Pretty basic. We're just rewarding people for staying with us longer rather than quick turnovers. We increased pricing for shorter stays. Again, the same concept, but the thought process is like, we're going to make more money if it's going to cost our staff more time and effort. The third, pricing tool or strategy rather was minimum stay requirements. So we stopped allowing one night bookings if we could avoid it. And what we did is we actually used like gap fills. So if we had a day that was open, it eliminated the minimum stay requirement to allow us to fill in that gap. Layering those rules is really paramount to making sure that, you get the best return in terms of, your asset. I don't think we would be able to scale properly without, understanding, the pricing and dynamic pricing. Those are the tools that help us scale, because we don't have to look at every individual unit on a daily basis. We could do check-ins. We could look at it every week and see kind of where we are. And, it really just helped us scale, and we're continuing to scale for that reason. Our goal right now is really moving towards pushing direct bookings. We're about to launch a website that we've spent some money on creating. We did this before Guesty launched all their websites, so we may have went in a different way if we had known that up front. But we spent a considerable amount of money to build out a really nice booking site, and that's the next thing that we're going to use. The Guesty PriceOptimizer to really push, is to help us with direct bookings, and obviously retain some of the money that would otherwise go to a booking channel. The last thing I want to touch on is specific to PriceOptimizer, because again, I'll go back to this thought process that we were using, third-party resources that were not native to Guesty, but were partners of Guesty's. And we had great relationships with those vendors. It wasn't like they were doing anything wrong or anything along those lines. We ultimately switched over to PriceOptimizer because it just was free with the Ultimate package as part of the other services that were bundled. But when we did, we found that there was actually some learnings and some real, successes that came along with PriceOptimizer. First of all, it was simplification. And simplification takes different forms, but the first is, we were all on one system rather than having to go to a million different systems to try to get what we needed done. So that was a big deal for us. The second part of simplification is the fact that we were able to go in and use the PriceOptimizer tool without having to learn all this complicated software. Some of the other programs that we used were really difficult in terms of trying to stack different rules and understanding the priorities of those rules. And it was almost every time that we went into those programs, we'd have to sit down with the liaison or the person that was managing our account to do those changes for us. We did not feel that way for Guesty. For PriceOptimizer, it was the exact opposite. It was intuitive. We were able to use it on our own. The next thing was focus. Is when it makes it easier to use a tool, you naturally start using it more. And what we were realizing is we were just able to better focus on creating time to dedicate to actually look at what we were doing from a pricing perspective and really make sure that we were getting the best returns. So I think that it helped our focus. The third thing is the idea of partnership. Whenever you're dealing with a third party vendor, you want it to be a smooth partnership. And what we were having a lot of issues with our previous vendors is not that they were it was amicable. We were working with them, but they would come back to us on more often than not on features and customizations that we felt would be helpful in terms of the priority of rules and stuff like that. And they would say, sorry, we don't have that feature, or no, we can't do that, or our team, our coders or whatever don't have the ability or the bandwidth to get that done. And we felt that happened more often than not, which was a deterrent for us doing business the way we wanted to do that. We have not had that issue at all with Guesty. In fact, every time we've reached out, with zero exception at this point, we've been able to, say, hey, have you looked into this feature? Have you thought about this customization? And every time they said, yeah, that's actually a great idea. Let's figure that out. And they've figured it out, and they've obviously, made improvements to their tools over time to ensure that we are getting the best service. So we really do appreciate that partnership, and we thank you guys for that. That's pretty much all I have. I just wanted to thank you for your time, and hopefully it's been helpful today.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate that. I really enjoyed the exercise you walked us through in terms of how you came to develop your 4-layered strategy of revenue management, where you just looked at what are the realistic limiting factors that I'm facing in my day to day. I don't think a lot of people would think about their cleaning staff having an impact on their pricing strategy. But when you lay out all the things that you need to worry about as an owner and operator, it starts to add up. And then you can translate those needs into, well, how can I get that in my actual pricing strategy here? So that was really, really cool to see. As Michael mentioned, we have a whole suite of tools. Guesty's really honing in on this end-to-end solution goal, which is a very lofty goal, I might say, in my experience in this industry. But as Michael kind of alluded to, what Guesty has really found success in terms of scaling this product and getting all of the various needs across all these various different channels to our customers is based on how our product team overall prioritizes initiatives. So just to give you a quick insight, it's not realistically what Michael is saying that someone just asks for something and Guesty turns around and goes, sure, we'll build it for you, because that would be insane. If every single customer that came to us, we were able to do that, that would be amazing. But I don't know how scalable that would necessarily be. But what we're doing in this process, not just for Optimizer, but for all of our tools, is anytime a customer comes to us and asks for a specific feature, we track that internally. And as those features have more and more customers asking for them, that feature gets bubbled up in terms of prioritization. So we're able to be sure that over time, we're not just trying to create tools that we think are going to benefit our customers and guess at it, but rather we're listening to our customers and understanding, where is this demand? Where is this need? Where are these pain points being felt by our customers? So that's something that I really have seen echoed throughout multiple areas of the platform, not just PriceOptimizer. So we can switch over to our panel, which doesn't require a presentation since we will all just be talking here. So the first question I wanted to ask here, just for the group, we've talked about all these different strategies, all these different functionalities. As a property manager who might be new to this space and might not be completely familiar with dynamic pricing, what's a recommendation for getting started? What is Michael, did you come in knowing that, hey, we're going to go and try to optimize our strategy based on our needs? Was that a trial and error? We'll start with you. On your side, did you have a clear idea of what you wanted to do out of the gate, or has this just been figuring it out as you go?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what we realized out of the gate was we needed a platform like Guesty to really help us with the calendar more than anything. That was the start. And so I think it builds from there is probably the best way to explain this is, we started to explore more of the partnerships that Guesty had. And it actually led us to a lot of learnings about different, systems that we wanted to add to, to the homes that we owned, and, better streamlining of process and whatnot. And ultimately we realized at a certain point that like we had a pretty good system in place, but then once you get to the point where you have the systems in place, like in general, like you have your house cleaners, you have your smart locks, you have obviously your calendar set up, you have all of your syndications to the different booking channels, like all of that was set up. Well, then it's about like optimizing it. And, PriceOptimizer is named appropriately because it's basically at that point you're thinking, all right, well, now I have all the systems in place. How do I get the best return off of the properties that we have and the units that we have on the market? So I would say that get everything else in line, because, you have to like crawl before you walk before you run. And I think that what that starts with is calendar. And then it moves to, automations like the smart locks and stuff like that. And obviously staffing is always a thing. But then from there, when you get into like fine tuning the business, that's where, the pricing dynamics, or dynamic pricing rather, is paramount. One thing that I also learned that, is the fact that, when you get your calendar in order, like your pricing, how you price it and how your rules that you set in place actually make you a better business without putting a lot of those systems in place. Because you're ultimately like in a position where, if you set up where gap fills, like, all right, like, so now you're not going to have occupancy issues. Like, if you set up where you're properly putting pricing strategies to make sure that there's not a stress on your staff, like I said, naturally you're not gonna have burnout and then wind up being like, oh, we have to shut down 14 rooms because we don't have the ability to turn them over.
Right.
It's just smart. It's just a smarter
Yeah,
system.
it sounds like kind of what you're saying is taking it piece by piece if you're like really, really just starting out, and being sure that while you are rolling out and optimizing these different verticals within property management, the cleaning, the pricing, the availability, the messaging, et cetera, to be sure that you don't get siloed into that and that you get tunnel vision and you're only paying attention to that one thing, because oftentimes the solution to multiple problems exists if you zoom out and realize, for example, I'm struggling to turn over these listings as quickly as I need to based on the demand. So what can I do to incentivize longer stays in order to reduce that actual pressure on the cleaning team while optimizing my revenue at the same time? So it's like, because there's so many verticals, that can be overwhelming, but it also opens the door to a, multiple birds with one stone type of solution.
I'm sitting here thinking while you're talking, and I think the best way to describe this is trying to get away from a manual process. Because ultimately, like, if you think about it, if you put the right rules in place, that goes hand in hand with you putting automated messaging in place within Guesty. Because now you have automated messaging that is saying, thank you so much for booking and welcome, when they arrive, and how is your stay, and all of those things. And it's the same exact principle as you're putting automations in place related to pricing. So it really works hand in hand with one another. And I think that ultimately what happens is a lot of people, when they get started, they get overwhelmed with it's too much. But it actually is the reverse. The more systems you put in place, the less overwhelming it is.
Yeah, and just to kind of add on to that briefly is Dana mentioned it in her presentation that specifically using PriceOptimizer can help save between 3 to 5 hours per week if you're utilizing it correctly. I mean, before joining Guesty, I've been in the vacation rental industry for over 10 years here in San Diego. I mean, if you're spending that time manually adjusting your rates or manually adjusting your minimum night restrictions every week is exhausting. And imagine if you could spend that extra 3 to 5 hours per week on your operations or marketing to new owners. Like, that's a huge benefit as well.
Cool. Dana, in your experience, just from the PriceOptimizer standpoint, do you think there is like someone signs up for PriceOptimizer, all their listings are eligible, they hop into the system. What, in your opinion, is like one of the first things that they should look at to determine, what do I do? Like, where can I start from here? Do we have baseline recommendations? What's kind of your product side of it?
Well, I think that the best practice in that term is just, first of all, review the competition. Don't ignore it. Review the competition, review the demand, and make sure that you're setting up the base price, the minimum night restrictions, the minimum night rules, everything that's related to, the basic, and then dive into the strategy, the pricing strategy that you want to set, like last minute strategy, demand pacing, and everything that Jeff demo. But it's really critical to follow the demand and follow the competition, and not just, to lay down and think that the tool is working for you, but you need to help it and to make sure that you are following it, and you make sure that the trends looks fine to you. So follow, you should be proactive. You should have a proactive approach in that matter.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So one last big question here for the group, and I've seen this a ton in the Q&A, and of course, it's a natural question that comes up. There's a number of really established, successful dynamic pricing tools in this marketplace as it exists today. They're partners of ours in certain cases, and it's a natural question to come up. That's, what's the difference maker here, right? What is it that sets Guesty PriceOptimizer apart from these other dynamic pricing tools? So maybe Dana, we can start with you in this case from a product standpoint. What are some product features that set apart? And then Michael, maybe you can jump in just to say, experience-wise, what's been the difference maker for your business?
Yeah.
So I think that the integration of pricing into optimizer into the PMS product provide you with a tool that best fit your needs and the environment that you are part of. So you can enjoy another layer of information that Guesty offer, right? As well as ability to leverage more layers, as I explained before, of that data-driven approach, right? With all the revenue management layer. So as we presented before, smart data-driven promotions are going to be available soon. And in the upcoming futures, also hopefully smart data-driven cancellation policy. So
Oh, wow.
so it's kind of a best fit. You enjoy a best fit. You enjoy something that is integrated into your PMS and also covering all the data-driven layers in our stack. So
Got it. So that integration isn't just a convenience factor. It's also allowing that data-driven approach from PriceOptimizer to really flow into all these other elements that Guesty is responsible for at the end of the
this
day.
one is unique for Guesty, okay, because we are PMS. So
Cool. Michael, on your end, from the business owning aspect, what's been the difference maker for you? Because you mentioned you had a great relationship with the partner before and nothing was necessarily wrong. So what you kind of spoke to this a little bit in your presentation, but what really made the difference for you?
I'll say this, like before this presentation, I sat down with my business partner, Doug, and shout out to him. He's incredible at what he does from a systems perspective. And we definitely run the business together. And we were both talking this through, and I think what we came to is this, let's assume that everything was equal. Like if everything was equal, and it's not, by the way, and I'll speak to that in a second, but if all was equal, then it would make sense to not be with another system. Like, and the reason why is we know we're using Guesty as our platform. Like we're happy with Guesty as our platform. We're not trying to change. So just from a simplification perspective, why would we work with another third-party vendor if we could work within a system we're already using regularly? So that's just if all things are equal. Now, what makes it not equal is a handful of things that I touched upon. Is one, from a pricing perspective, we're literally getting PriceOptimizer for free. And I say that because we're using, Guesty, like the ultimate package. So we were already paying for these other services. And when you bundle them all together, it made PriceOptimizer no cost to us. So it was like we're paying for a third-party vendor when it could be, eliminate that cost entirely. So that's a no-brainer. And then the other piece of it was this thought process that, it was a simpler system. The rule sets for priorities, and that's, if anybody's actually worked with dynamic pricing before and has been we've worked with several different systems prior to PriceOptimizer, and it's always a challenge when you set up a bunch of different rules and you don't know what rules kind of like take precedence over the others.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you could drive yourself crazy trying to figure that piece of it out. There's no guesswork when it relates to Guesty's system. Like you absolutely know what rules take priority. You know exactly what your base pricing is. You understand what the limits are in terms of we won't go below these numbers. It just makes for such an easier situation for us. And then the last thing is, and it's on a human level. I was joking around before. I wasn't joking. We really have had that experience, but I understand, Keegan, your point that like not every feature could be made at, like the drop of the hat.
Right.
Like these other systems didn't have Jeff. Like, Jeff's been an awesome partner for us. Like we appreciate you. And the fact that like we've had, a really nice back and forth amicable relationship and know that we have a strong partner is monumental. And I think that, ease of use, cost, relationship, those are the three things that stand out, right off top of the head.
Awesome. Okay, great. Well, thank you guys. One final, just quick, fun question. Dynamic pricing is something that is very well seen and understood in, I think, the accommodation space, hospitality, like hotels and short-term rentals, flights. Recently, we started to see a company attempt to, bridge the gap of dynamic pricing into the food space. Wendy's threw out the idea of looking to dynamically price their food. Do any of you guys think that dynamic pricing has a future in other verticals, or do you think we'll see it stay pretty constrained to hospitality and travel?
I mean, we're already seeing it in other verticals. Like Uber. Like, with surge pricing and all of that, like, there's naturally dynamic pricing happening in various different, verticals. So I do think that we're going to see more of that, fortunately / unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Awesome. Awesome. All right, cool. Well, thank you everyone for coming today in the audience, our panelists. We really appreciate your time. It looks like we weren't able to get to everyone's questions here today, but we will do our best to follow up after the fact. If you want to learn more information about Guesty Price Optimizer, and you indicated as such in the poll, we'll be sending you more details. But if you're ever just looking for more details, the Guesty website is a great resource to go and learn more about the different services that we offer. And you can get in touch with a member of our sales team who are really good at diving into what is your current use case today? How would you be looking to use a tool like Guesty or our Price Optimizer, and advise you on whether we think it's a good fit or not and negotiate from there. So thank you again to all of our panelists. Thank you to the crowd, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll be sharing the recording in the next week or so.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Have a good one, everyone. Bye.